Welcome to the Danger Zone, the Terrible Infant Movies and TV podcast. It's Will. It's
Hi,
Mike.
It's Mike. Hello.
Tasha's here.
Hello.
Today we're just going to have fun. We're going to do something silly. It's not going to be definitive. It's not going to be expert. And we're just going to talk about our favorite Netflix shows / what we think are the best, I guess. Like, do we want to do favorite? Do we want to do... Because if we're talking about best, we have to objectively be like, well, this is why this one is
Let's
the
just
best.
say the ones that we like, right?
Let's call it our favorite Netflix shows. And, I mean, I've got a whole list pulled up. There's so many Netflix shows as part of the insanity.
Well, I remember when they first started doing their originals.
The first one was House of Cards,
yeah, but
right?
even then, their goal was to have a new show, original show, every week of the year. So, 52 shows.
Wow.
That was the goal. I don't know if they're there. They're probably close.
They're almost there, probably, for sure.
Yeah,
They're
there's a lot of them. So does anyone want to jump right in? And I mean, I can, but I want to let other people talk. What is your favorite?
So I think the thing that I like the best, and I think is the best show and the best done show on Netflix, is Mindhunter. It's just so engaging. I'm really into like the true crime stuff as well, and so that show was really cool. I knew a lot of the serial killers and the people that they were
Personally?
chronicling. Yeah,
Ed Kemper's your BFF.
Yeah, he's my hero.
So, and can I just interrupt you for 2 seconds?
Sure.
If Mike sounds a little more nasal than he usually does. He has a tissue rolled up in each nose because his nose is bleeding for some reason.
Well, it was first
that
one
coke.
nostril started bleeding, and then
it's all
the
the
other
coke.
one started bleeding. So yeah,
He's doing
it's
the
all
new
that
Donald
coke.
Trump diet.
Jesus, I'd weigh like 800 pounds then. That show was just really interesting to me, and the characters were really cool. I like that it's based on reality, even though I know a lot of it's probably adapted.
So here's a question I have for you. If you know a lot of, so I just finished season 1 of Mindhunter. Have you watched Mindhunter?
No, but
Okay, so I don't want
That's
to.
good.
I don't want to spoil anything for Tasha, but when they're solving those like smaller crimes throughout the show, are those real crimes, or is that like something they made up for the show while they're doing this serial killer stuff?
If I had to guess, I don't know the answer for sure, but if I had to guess, I'm guessing it's just crimes they made up.
Yeah.
The part where they travel from town to town and lecture, basically,
Yeah.
I'm sure they did do that, because at the time this was emerging, a new way of thinking of how to solve crimes and hopefully prevent it. And I think it's written into the show to show that these methods actually work, because they basically go there and after like talking to a few people, they solve a crime that hasn't been solved in years, right? Maybe they are based on fact. I don't know. I would guess not. Just if I had to guess. But the actual serial killers, Kemper, Jerry Brudos, Dennis Rader, all those are actually real.
I really, really, really enjoyed Mindhunter. There were just there were a couple things. I'm really nitpicky, I should say, too, about TV stuff, and like the smallest thing can irk me so much that I start hating a show. And I don't hate Mindhunter, but like in the way that I would hate a show that irks me like that. But there were just a few things about Mindhunter that made me feel like someone somewhere high up in the decision-making process didn't trust the material enough to just be itself. And we have these like little forays into the personal lives of characters. I'm like, this doesn't have anything to do with anything. I don't care. I don't need to know about this person's personal life. Like, it's just not interesting.
By far the most interesting part is when they're speaking with the serial killers or solving
crimes.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what the show is about.
Yeah.
Like, and I understand there's this thing of like, well, we have to know these characters and stuff. I'm like, I can know them through this thing that they're doing. I don't have to see him drinking wine with his girlfriend while she's doing her homework.
Yeah. I get it, and it's like it's just, to me, overall, I'll take the show overall. I think it's great. So I think Mindhunter, I'm really excited for season 2.
When is that? Because Mindhunter season 1 was like fall of 2017.
Yeah,
It's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
I think I've read that they only started filming in December,
Jeez.
January 29th.
Is it because
right
David
now?
Fincher's so busy, or is it because the writing takes forever?
I don't know.
How many episodes is the season? 12?
13.
13?
Yeah. What about you guys? What's another show? I have a couple others I can go into. Or
I mean, for me, it's like no question the best Netflix show is one of my favorite shows ever, which is Stranger Things. And to me,
I would have never guessed.
the reason I would pick this is interesting, but I mean, to me, the reason, like, because I was thinking about this when we decided, and I just rewatched Stranger Things actually twice because I rewatched it on my own, and then I found out over the holidays, my mother-in-law had never seen it, and she was like, "What, Stranger Things?" And I was like, "Let's
gotta
watch it."
watch it,
So
yeah.
I've seen it like
It's a really good
almost
show,
3 times, like within the past couple months. But the thing that distinguishes it really to me, I mean, I really love that show, and like obviously I was born in 1983, which is the first season of the show takes place in 1983. It's like I see lots of stuff from my childhood and stuff like that, and the way they evoke that time, and like a lot of the movies they're pulling on are movies that I saw as a kid. But that show, more than any other TV show I think maybe that I've ever seen, except for maybe like what's the David Lynch show, Twin Peaks, has like a complete aesthetic, where like the look of the show, the writing of the show, the characters, the music, like every single thing works and was obviously deliberately conceived to be that way.
Yeah.
And I can't think of any other. It really is like a movie that was from the mind of a single person. And obviously because the creators are brothers.
Yeah.
And they can see, like, I was reading about their pitch to Netflix, and they had like a graphic artist do that font. So that and they pitched each episode as a chapter, and they had a book that people could look through that had like costumes from the era, and like the whole thing was conceived of as they brought it in.
Didn't they pitch it to a bunch of places?
A bunch of places,
passed, like,
yeah.
everywhere until Netflix finally like took a chance on it.
So they got passed on. I was reading this as I was reading about the show. Like, they were up for a lot of big movies to be the directors, because they did a really low budget like horror thriller type movie. I think is kind of well regarded like in the industry, even though it didn't really do like much business. And so they got a lot of meetings, and they got passed on. Like, they were like second or third runner up for a bunch of really big like franchises and stuff. And now everyone wants them, but they're like, well, why would we do that when we were doing our own
hooked,
thing?
they have total control of that show now. Yeah.
But I mean,
great show.
I just love that. Like, there's so much. I know this will sound weird to you knowing me, but there's so much heart to that show, and that's why I really love those characters, and I love the fact that the show has this. And I guess I should say that it has like a lot of earnestness, and there's a lot of like compassion and humanity to it, but it also is very dark, and it almost like Spielberg is the name that comes up a lot, I think, when people talk about that show. I think more of Guillermo del Toro, because it's dark and it's violent, and you have children in peril, and you have these monsters, but then it's also about these kids trying, like, who aren't jaded yet, like, who really believe in something.
And it's like one of the few shows with kids in it where like the kid actors are actually good.
They're
and
really
I like
good.
them because usually when there's a kid in a show, I'm like, God damn, I have to watch and listen to this whiny kid so we can get back to the actual story. Like, this one's they're the main characters.
I mean, the girl,
and,
like, when I
think they're really good.
First episode of that show, I
She's
turned
really
to
good.
my wife and I was like, "That girl who plays 11 is like one of the best fucking actors I've ever seen."
Yeah.
She's
But
already
in
big,
the
but she's gonna be
second
really
season, the kid Will is like the whole first season pivots around him, but he's barely in it.
Right.
So it's like, did they know that he would be one of the main characters in season 2? Because he's amazing in season 2, and you almost have to wonder if, like, did they cast him for season 1 knowing that he would have a huge role in the future, or did they just get really lucky and that kid is just a really good actor?
Let's give him some more to do.
But
who knows?
I mean, Jim Hopper is amazing. I mean, Paul Reiser and Sean Astin are both in season 2.
They're smart because they're bringing in. They have the whole '80s nostalgia thing behind them, so it's like, let's bring in good actors who also invoke that. So
Well, what's
Sean
interesting
Astin
though about
and Paul Reiser,
Sean Astin
and Winona
sent
Ryder
in an audition tape, and they were going through the audition tapes for that part, and his came on, and they were like, "Is this a joke? Like, Sean Astin doesn't audition for stuff, does he?" And they're like, "He does." And they were just like, "Well, obviously we're gonna
casting.
like,
let's get him,
right?
Like,
Yeah,
a huge '80s star, and a good actor.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's an amazing actor.
Yeah.
And Paul Reiser is a really fantastic actor too. Do you have a?
I would say, so this actually started off as a Lifetime show, and then
I know what you're gonna say.
was then made a Netflix original. You?
Yeah.
Has anyone watched that show?
I have not watched.
Wait, is that
show.
the one with Gossip
Episodes.
Girl?
Yeah, everyone calls him
Dan
Gossip Girl.
Humphrey.
Yeah. So good. It's such a good show, and I think that it's perfect for Netflix because if I had watched it on Lifetime, I would not have watched it because it was just kind of
Would
like
it be too tame or?
it's it's poorly written. It's like bad good, and it's like one of those shows where like if you had a week to think about it in between, you'd be like, oh no, this is
horrible,
terrible.
yeah.
Like, what's going on?
But you, like,
but because you only have like 5 seconds between when the next episode comes on, you're like, I just got to keep watching, and so that's why the show is
That's how
so
they get
good.
you.
I know, it's do you want to just like,
I have
It's like, I don't know. I haven't left the couch in 8 hours, but I guess I'll watch some more. I'm already a fat bastard. Might as well.
Like, yeah, I feel like that show fits the perfect, like, Netflix formula of, like, you just gotta just keep watching until the end. And then once you, well, like, I remember just, like, watching the show and being like, oh, telling all my friends, like, oh, this is so good. This is so good. And then getting to the end and, like, really thinking about it and being like, okay, that is not, this is not possible at all.
There's so many times where I'll, like, watch a show and I'll be like, eh. And, like, you really should continue if, like, you don't really care about the show. But, like, well, it's only, like, another 28 minutes. And, like, there's, like, 4 more episodes. I'll finish this 2 seasons and then call it a weekend. And it's like, God damn, Netflix, you just, like, took 18 hours of my life.
Well, that's why I like, so, a show that Mike and I both really like that has really short seasons is Castlevania.
Yeah, that's
Isn't the first season, like, 4 episodes?
The first season, I think, was just done to kind of show, like, here's what it can be, kind of like an origin story almost. And then the second season was 8 episodes, and I think the third season is going to be 8 or 10 episodes as well. That's amazing. And obviously, people who play the game are going to like it.
They do a lot of, Netflix does a lot of anime.
Yeah,
right?
They do. But that show
it's a big market.
That's a great show. Like, it's violent and bloody. There are moments of humor in it. The animation's cool. The story's, it's fun. It's really gothic.
I really like the ambiance of that show. Yeah, it's like very, it reminds me almost of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
It reminds me a lot of that,
the Coppola movie. But it has that, like, evil, it's not like I find that a lot of shows that try to be dark do it in a way that's not convincing.
Yeah.
And that show is like, and it's weird because it's an animated show. So when I first started watching it, I was like, I don't know. But Mike was like, oh, you should watch this. You'll like it. But it's really evil.
It's very evil. And like the games are pretty evil too. And it's like, it's basically a fictional family who like hunt monsters and vampires. And in the show, it's one guy from that family. He's the last of that line. And he's sort of this like jaded dude who kind of like gets talked into helping people and like saving people. But yeah, it is evil. There's just a lot of like murder and a lot of blood, and it's dark setting, and it's like at night, and it's like it opens with like Dracula, and you kind of, it's like in the beginning you almost feel bad for the bad guy, like for Dracula. So
it's very well done. Like the setup is really good. Yeah.
So a show I like a lot, and I was actually just watching it recently for various reasons, was Glow.
For various reasons.
Well,
I'm on my couch.
I'm working on a pilot, so I'm watching something about wrestling because that's what I'm doing. I'm a big wrestling fan, and I'd actually seen the documentary about Glow that's on Netflix about the actual organization that was around in the 80s and early 90s. And so at first I didn't think I'd like the show, but like it's really fun, and it's another one of those like quick watches where it's like you sit down and then you've watched half the season and you're like, well, I'm not going to stop now. I'm going to finish it off.
Have you seen Glow?
No.
It's a fun show.
So I wanted to watch Glow, and so this is
That's how it was for the longest time, and then I finally bit the bullet.
So my wife is a teacher, right? And teachers basically work from when they get up until they go to bed because students and parents are calling them and emailing them, and they're grading stuff and they're lesson planning, and it's just like a lot of busy work, right? So what she'll do in the evening, once our kid has gone to bed, is she puts TV on, and then she just works. She like grades papers, she grades assignments, she lesson plans, whatever. The TV's just kind of on in the background. So a lot of times what will happen is I'll see a show like on Netflix, whatever. I'll be like, oh, I want to watch that, and I'll come home or whatever. She's halfway through like the 5th season or something, and I'm like, okay, well there goes that idea. So Glow was one of those where I was like, hey, do you want to watch Glow? And she's like, oh, I already did.
That's a very easy show to have on in the background.
But yeah, so a show that I want to mention just because I don't think it's like the greatest show in the history of the world, but it doesn't get talked about a lot, and I really loved it, is Sense8, which I've talked about on this podcast before.
Yeah.
I think when Jim was here and he was just looking at me like I was insane. Have you seen Sense8?
No, but I've heard about it. Heard there's epic orgy.
Yeah, there's multiple orgies. It's just completely insane. I really like the Wachowskis, and one of the things I like about the Wachowskis is the insanity of their material. Like, a lot of people like the first Matrix movie, and then they're like, well, they went off the rails after that. But to me, it's like, oh, let's keep going off the rails. Like, let's go even further off the rails. But so Sense8 is about
one of those people.
like these, I think they're called cells or families or groups or something. It's like these people who are psychically connected to one another, and they so they can they can go into each other's minds and like use each other's skills to do stuff. So the central group that we're watching, there's like a computer hacker, there's a martial artist, there's an actor, right? So he's really good at like talking to people and getting his way out of situations and things like that. The one that Mike thought was really funny is there's a bus driver, but he's if you need a getaway driver or whatever, right?
It's just funny. There's actors and there's smart people and a hacker and a thief, and there's like, oh, I'm a bus driver. They're like, okay, why are you even in this group? Get out.
But he also ends up in the second season. He becomes like a successful local politician. So he's like very charismatic and like whatever. But he is a bus driver, yeah. So, but it's just totally nuts. And like there's lots of sex. There's orgy stuff. It's kind of hard to describe because there's like 8 protagonists, and in each of their stories there are other characters, and there's a cop. One of them is a cop too, and like some of them are having romances with each other, but they're like sort of siblings, and it's just insane. But anyway, so. And I appreciate the fact that Netflix, I mean, that show's budget was like $8 million an episode or something.
Big budget. I think that's just one of the reasons like they just couldn't justify it.
But the thing that I really like about the Wachowskis is that if you even going back to the Matrix, like the only central character in the main group in the Matrix that is a white man is the one who betrays them, right? And all of their material is about creating this like world in which you just start erasing the boundaries of like sexuality, gender, race, ethnicity. Like in Sense8, there's like an Indian woman, there's a German guy, there's a guy who lives in Africa, and like they're all the same person kind of. And so their identities don't matter anymore. And like there's one who's trans, and by being like connected in the head to her, the sexuality of some of the other ones starts changing, and it's this very like pro almost like a humanist message to the extreme that we're all just humans and nothing else matters. And I really love that about the fact that in like these gonzo sci-fi shows, that message is really important.
Yeah.
So it actually kind of reminds me. We have a friend named Albert. I have to tell you this, or else this won't make any sense to you. But he writes kind of like crazy sci-fi stuff, and it kind of reminds me of something that he might write.
Oh, interesting. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, so Netflix comedies, we're talking mostly about like just sci-fi and drama.
I was going to say, we were
stuff.
talking about Castlevania, so another animated show that I like on Netflix is F is for Family. And if anyone's familiar with Bill Burr, the comedian, it's his show, and it's just kind of, I think, loosely based on him growing up in the 70s, and probably, I think it's in Boston or...
He's from Boston.
Yeah, from that area, from the New England area. It's just, I mean... If you don't like his stand-up and his brand of humor, you obviously hate the show. It's offensive. It's like rude. He's basically yelling for 20 minutes in every episode.
Well, that's what he does in his stand-up too, right?
I think it's really funny, and there's some really funny moments in it. But I can see how some people wouldn't like it. It just finished season 3, and it got renewed for another one. So they'll be coming back for a 4th season. So that's pretty successful in terms of a Netflix show, because there hasn't been a ton of Netflix shows that have gone past, like 5 or 6 seasons? I think
House of Cards did 5, right?
House of Cards did 5, and Orange is the New Black, I think, is 5 or 6.
Well, so do you guys like that show?
Orange is the New Black?
I watch it.
I love it.
Talk about it. Go
tell us.
I love the show. I mean, I think the first 3 seasons... First season, great. Second season, great. Third season sucked. Fourth season, I liked. And fifth season, I liked. I know there was controversy around the 4th season with the way it ended. Did you guys watch it?
I don't watch any of it.
I won't spoil it.
I honestly don't mind if you spoil it.
I also don't mind if you spoil it.
I watched, I think, the first season, or like the first half of the first season.
Okay. I think it was really good. I think especially for the time, it was one of the first like Netflix originals. I think like House of Cards.
It was pretty early on, right?
Yeah, and then this, and it was, again, like, we talk what I like is like female-led stuff, and it was very interesting because it was like, it towed the line between comedy and drama. There was a lot of dramatic moments because obviously it's about these women in prison, but then it became more comedic.
It's like dramedy.
Yeah.
It's like, when I think of, because I think like dramedy is a fairly, not like recent, but like a fairly recent-ish term. And when anyone ever says dramedy, I always think of that show first, even though I haven't seen it. So like,
It does it
they
really well.
They definitely got that going for them.
And what's also interesting about that show that I wonder, it's a show it can get away with more. I think obviously like Netflix shows can get away with more because one, it's on like a streaming service, so they're not held to. They can do whatever they want, and
Did
because
they give themselves ratings?
They do because the shows are rated TVMA or TV.
But they assign them themselves.
I think so.
Okay.
I think it's just like if you have kids, if like, well, I don't want.
Yeah, I guess they'll be like,
that.
don't watch.
Yeah.
But what's interesting and something that you wouldn't see on a show that is kind of like week to week is that like basically like the main character in Orange Is the New Black is like the worst character.
Is that the woman who goes to prison?
Yeah, and it's like not on purpose. Like they just didn't do a good job with her character. And it's one of those things that like you can tell that they heard that. And so as the seasons go on, she is like less and less. I feel like there was one episode where she wasn't even in it. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be centered around her experiences about this. But I think you can definitely get away with that like on a Netflix show, which you would be able to get away with.
Was she only in prison for like 2 years? It's based
in
on
real
a real
life,
woman, right?
yeah. In real life, she was only in prison for like a couple of years.
Been in prison the show
and I don't think
as long
she
as
was
in real
like.
life.
I guess the crimes were similar, but I don't think it's like like the exact same.
Is Jason Biggs still on it?
No, he's done second season.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's a really, really good show.
So a quick hitting show. We were talking about comedy again. A show I didn't think I would like. Disenchantment. Or Disenchant, I forget what it is.
Yeah, Disenchantment.
It's the one.
Is that
Matt
the
Groening. It's a
Simpsons?
And I was like, I'll give it a shot because I used to love The Simpsons like way back in the day, like 20 years ago, whatever. And I was like, I'll give it a shot. Maybe they can like, ramp it up a bit on a streaming service, and it's actually pretty funny. Won't really talk about it too much, but like if you just want a quick 10 episode funny thing, it's pretty funny.
Now
yeah,
that you're endorsing it.
And the other show, another comedy on Netflix that I really like that I think I've told you before is it's called Norseman.
Is it the Viking one?
It's the Viking one.
Oh, it's a comedy?
It's a comedy.
Well, there's like 3 Viking shows on Netflix.
Yeah. So this is Norseman, and it's I think it's a Norwegian production, and I think they
I think I saw
it.
Morton in the background.
Yeah, basically.
Just like cooking
it's basically Vikings, but a comedy, and it's funny because there are like very gory moments in it, like when they're fighting and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's solely a comedy. It's like it's like a farce. It's like completely ridiculous. Like
you showed me a couple scenes, and I thought they were hilarious.
It's just hilarious.
Yeah.
Like in the beginning, they're doing this thing where they take all the old people out of town because they're useless in society, and they have to jump off a cliff, and like. They're like, you know what? And like one guy does it, and all the other old people look down. They're like, I don't really want to do that. And he's like, come on, guys, you have to do it. And they're like, and they just leave. And it's like, it's so ridiculous. So like, I didn't think I would like it, but just started watching. I'm like, this is pretty funny.
It's also like to me that's like the perfect idea for like using the streaming platform to like. I bet it would be really hard to go to like Fox and be like, you have to spend all this money making a Viking show with the costumes and the locations and shit, but it's a sitcom.
Yeah, there's
like,
not as much like warfare and stuff.
Yeah, but with obviously it's different because it's a Norwegian production, but like on a platform like Netflix, you're like, if you can get people to just start watching it with that,
then you
keep watching things.
Yeah,
and
it's so short too. That show.
Yeah, it's like a 25-minute episode. And I think there's 10 of them or 8 of them or whatever.
Yeah,
and you can kind of breeze through and like you start liking the characters, and it was hard for me because the main character in like the first or second episode, I think in the first episode he's like, they're having a feast after like a successful raid, and he's like talking to this farmer, and everyone's like cheering him on, and they're like go for it. And I was like, all right, he's gonna ask somebody out or something. So he goes up to this farmer. He's like, I really like your farm and your land, I want it. And they're like, I challenge you to a duel. He's like, what? And like he's a little tiny guy, and he's the main character's like 300 pounds. He's like, yeah, we're gonna fight. I'm gonna take your farm and your wife. And I'm like, and then like the whole episode is this guy like coming up with ways that he can kill him. He gets like this magic poison and all this stick, and then they do the fight, and he's like ready to go, and and the fight is like 2 seconds, and he just gets cut in half, literally. And the guy takes his farm and his wife. And the wife doesn't care.
Mike's
and it's
so happy right now because that's what Mike wants to happen to him. He wish he was a Viking and he could just take someone's farm.
And wife, because basically I'm just like that farmer without a wife or a farm.
We should just end on that.
I think another show.
Wait, no, hold on.
I was gonna ask, have you guys watched American Vandal?
No.
Is that the penis one?
Yes.
Yeah, my parents told me about that, actually.
Your parents?
Yeah, they said it was hilarious.
It's so good. It's very good because it's dark comedy, which I really
Too bad
like.
It got canceled.
Huh?
It got canceled.
It got canceled because it was produced by a company that Netflix is like no longer working with. It was
That
like
makes
a
sense.
weird.
That's like the whole thing with the Marvel shows now.
Yeah, because they're like it's weird. But yeah, it's just like really good dark comedy, and like if you guys have seen like Making a Murderer or like these true crime shows, it just plays on that aspect. And but
it's about people who draw penises on cars.
So yeah, so basically it's like with Making a Murder was like, did this guy kill this person?
Yeah.
With Serial it was like, did this guy kill this person? So American Vandal is like, did this kid draw these dicks on a car? And at first it sounds so stupid. It sounds like a very
it sounds hilarious.
it's like sounds like such a like crazy like premise, but then you watch it and it's like obviously hilarious, and then two, like you really get sucked in. You're like, I gotta find out who drew these dicks on the car. Like I just gotta know by the end of it. It's such a good.
I saw one of those cars. Driving around LA. The dick cars, yeah. It's like a
That's actually
thing.
really smart marketing.
Yeah.
Those true crime documentaries do really well on Netflix.
People
they get
go
talked a
nuts
lot
for
about.
those.
Yeah.
Did you guys watch like
Lord.
Making a Murderer? Oh my god.
I didn't need
First
to watch
season.
Making a Murderer because when that show came out, I was working at like an animal rehab clinic, and so like we would do like physical therapy for like animals who had had surgery or were injured or whatever, and a lot of the times the people who came in with the dogs would stay and like talk to us while we were doing the stuff, and I heard the entire plot of that show about 500 times from people who were watching it, and because the physical therapist watched it, I was like the physical therapist assistant, so that they would be talking about it, and I would just
All
be
the
like,
time, you're like, all right, I know this show.
Okay. That's funny.
And we mentioned the Marvel shows. I don't want to talk about all of them. I'll just talk about my favorite.
oh,
which
I
is-
know what it is.
It's the Punisher.
Jessica Jones. Oh.
Oh yeah. I'm a huge fan of the Punisher comic books and the Punisher character. And John Bernthal's a really good actor, and I like him in a lot of the shows and the movies he's in. So when he first appeared in Daredevil season 2 is really cool. It's so good.
His arc in Daredevil is amazing. I really like Daredevil, but that
It's so that arc.
Yeah.
Once he leaves in season 2, kind of is like, eh. It's so good because in Daredevil, he's not really the good guy, right? He's kind of just a psycho killing people. He's kind of like, he's not killing good people, but he's not like,
he's like a manifestation of wrath.
yeah,
basically.
he's just angry
it's
at
amazing.
everything. And I just finished watching the second season, which unfortunately will probably be the last. And it's really good because it's like, it's still the Punisher and Frank Castle, but it's almost like they take him out of the MC, like all that stuff, and kind of put him in this other story, and it's almost like a standalone story that's like a season
but it's
long.
also like, what would they with the character like Punisher? They're just gonna have him like show up and start blowing Hawkeye away or something. Like he can't exist in that universe. It doesn't make any sense.
And he can't even really exist in the TV universe either, because none of the other ones, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, they really want to kill people. And
Daredevil's pretty violent.
he's violent, but he's not going to kill people.
Yeah.
And Punisher, that's his first inclination.
Well,
so it's like,
does
how did
Elektra
they get
kill
along?
people?
Yeah, but she's not a hero, right?
Right.
In that, so I really like Punisher mainly because John Bernthal is really good in it. The stories feel awesome, and
I
it's
loved
just really
Punisher
fun.
and Daredevil, and I really liked. And Daredevil, I didn't expect to like, and I really liked it. What I think is interesting about Daredevil is it's a martial arts show, right? Because Daredevil does martial arts,
Yeah.
right? But it has the aesthetic of like South Korean movies, and I've read interviews with the show creator, and he talks a lot about South Korean movies, and he loves South Korean movies, and so stuff like Old Boy, I Saw the Devil,
so good.
The Wailing, like those, I love those movies. But those movies typically don't have martial arts in them. And I love martial arts movies. So to combine a martial arts thing with that aesthetic, I'm like, oh, I'm sold. Okay, I don't even care what this is about. But the Punisher's arc in that show is amazing. And then I watched like one episode of Luke Cage, and I wanted to love Luke Cage. And the guy who was the head writer, the showrunner, or whatever, creator of Luke Cage, the screenwriter they hired, also wrote the Notorious B.I.G. movie, which has a terrible screenplay. And I'm like, why do people keep hiring this guy? Like, it's just bad writing. And like, I was like, the premise of Luke Cage is amazing, and the setup of it. And I actually used to live in Harlem, so I was like, I'm really excited about this. And my wife taught in Harlem, and like we were there for a while, and it was just like,
The problem I think with that universe is like, in the end,
They're all the same
Daredevil.
character,
Yeah, they're
too.
all the same character, and Daredevil came first, and he's better than Jessica Jones or Luke Cage or Iron Fist.
First
But they're
season
all-
of Jessica Jones was really good.
It's good, but they're the same character. That's why Punisher stands out because he's different. Now, if they made Luke Cage like also kill people, but have like these like moral dilemmas, if like they gave him something different, but they're all like the same.
For me,
That's,
I just feel like if the writing on Luke Cage,
that-
because Mahershala Ali,
he's really good.
Isn't it, right?
They have a really
Yeah.
good cast. I mean, I watched both seasons of Luke Cage and I liked it enough, but it wasn't. I didn't like it as much as Daredevil. I didn't like it as much as Punisher. I quit on Iron Fist. I've seen some of Jessica
I saw a
Jones.
clip from Iron Fist. Someone was, I don't remember who this was, but one of my friends was like, "Have you seen Iron Fist?" And I was like, "No, why?" And he's like, "Because it's so bad, you can't believe how bad it is."
Oh, I was gonna talk about that as my favorite. I wasn't.
Uh-oh.
I'm kidding.
And they sent me this clip, and I was like, "This can't be real. Like, this has to be an SNL thing.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening right now?" It was horrible. It was like so horrible.
I heard it was really, really bad. Like,
It's the problem with Iron Fist. I think is not. I mean, Iron Fist kind of sucks, and his power is that he can do kung fu and punch stuff.
It's like cool.
Like-
So can Bruce Lee.
But like the people, like Daredevil's cool, and the characters around him are interesting and awesome.
the Vincent D'Onofrio, what's his name?
Vincent
D'Onofrio. He plays Bullseye, right?
No, he plays Kingpin
Who's Bullseye?
in the third season.
Oh, I didn't see the
I
third
didn't see the
season.
third
Oh,
season
okay. I just got the villains confused. Whatever. The villain that he plays
But
is really
good
good.
villain, but
Colin
also
Farrell is Bullseye.
but also Karen
Ben Affleck
Page
one.
is fun, and
She's the lawyer, right?
she's the
Yeah.
lawyer, and Foggy Nelson's good. Like there's characters around him, and there's like the story around him is good, and Iron Fist is like,
Just sucks.
yeah.
So what about? Can I just mention this, and maybe you guys will hate
Go
it. And we
for
can
it.
move on. Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
oh, I love that show.
Isn't
I was
it
reading
good?
the script on the way here. the pilot.
Were you
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
I like that show a lot.
I never watched
It's
it.
just fun.
It's weird.
It's
Yeah.
weird and fun.
Titus.
Titus
is amazing.
Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir. Midsize
What's-
car.
What's the thing where he's a wolf?
Oh yeah, his like.
It's just so silly. Yeah, that show's really
There's-
fun.
I know one show that me and you like that we haven't mentioned that maybe you want to talk about. With Jason Bateman in it.
Arrested Development.
Ozark.
Ozark.
Oh, Ozark. Because I was going to say the Netflix seasons of Arrested Development are not the ones anyone would mention. They're talking about liking that show.
I
Those
gave
are
up.
bad.
I couldn't get through it. But Ozark's really good.
I loved the first season of Ozark. I liked the second season, but what I loved about the first season of Ozark is I have to, before going into this, say that I lived in Vermont for a while, and I lived in Massachusetts, both in rural places, right? So I didn't live in like Boston. I lived in Western Massachusetts, and you very rarely get TV shows or movies of like high profile. Obviously, they're independent filmmakers in these places, right? But like high profile shows or movies that are about rural places with a lot of poverty is not quite the right word, because I feel like yes, these people are poor, but poverty I think is more intense when it's relative. So like if you're poor in New York City, you're a lot more poor than you are if you're poor in like the Ozarks, I think.
Right.
But these people are poor basically, right? And they live in trailers, and like you very rarely get those types of things that are not condescending. Either condescending or romanticizing, right? Because when they romanticize, it's like everyone's happy, and it's like, no, they're not. It's
Right.
not that fun to live in those places. But then you get the ones where you're like, this is hell, and it's like, no, it's really not, right? It's like, it's all of these things at once.
Right.
And I think Ozark did a really good job of being very, like, almost objective and clear-eyed and honest about what it's like to live in these places. And a lot of the tension of the show comes from the fact that they're in this place. Whereas in season 2, they move into the whole thing with the casino, and the Kansas City mob comes into it. And to me, that is less interesting than like the rural aspect of it. But I didn't think the second season was bad at all. The thing that drove me nuts, and I think Mike agrees with me on this, maybe about. Have you seen season 1 of Ozark?
No,
Are you interested in seeing
I
season
am.
1?
But you can spoil that. I don't
No,
care.
well, I'll try to say this in such a way where there's no spoiler. But essentially, what happens is there's a confrontation between a guy who's pretty high up in like a big drug cartel, and these two
I know what you're gonna say.
two redneck local drug dealers, and they're basically meeting on even terms, right? Like they're in the house of the local drug dealers. the guy from the Mexican cartel only has like 2 guards with him. He agrees to surrender his weapons. I'm like, if you have ever read anything about a Mexican cartel, like, they don't show up with no weapons and have fucking negotiation with you. Like, it's just absurd. And that scene and the consequences of that scene are so clearly designed to create drama and extend these characters and their relationships that it felt so false to me that I was like angry about it.
Wow, and that's in the first season of
It's the end of the first season, and it's like, that's not what Mexican cartels do. Like, they show up and they burn your fucking house down and they cut your head off. Like, they don't come and have a meeting with you.
And what's
like,
really
weird,
what's really weird about how they chose to end that is throughout most of the first half or first 3/4 of the season, it's an ominous threat that like the cartel's out there,
right?
And also, no one really wanted to like really mess with Marty because they know who's backing
Which
him,
is the
right?
Jason Bateman character.
Yeah,
right. Everyone's afraid of doing anything to him because they know the cartel's
they know
behind
who's backing him. So if you're afraid of doing something to him, why would you do it to them directly, right?
So stupid.
Which didn't make a lot of sense.
Oh, I should qualify. Actually, I keep saying Mexican cartel because it is a Mexican cartel, but I think any cartel, be it like the Russian mafia,
really
the Colombian
criminal
cartel, any
organization,
massive criminal organization doesn't come to a local drug dealer's house and have a talk. Like,
even if you have, you know, like 15, 20 local guys around you, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to stop $1 billion organization.
But I did really. I mean, I like Jason Bateman a lot, and I have like long insisted that he's not just a good comedian; he's a very good actor. And so, like, to see a show like this is really nice for me. Like, you get to see him in that kind of role. And one of the things I really like about Jason Bateman is that I can I've sort of met him. I went to an event that he was at. He's like extremely friendly. But as an actor, the way that he is in Arrested Development, for instance, I could see him being really good at playing a sociopath.
Yeah.
And the character of Marty is like borderline something is going on there where he doesn't have a lot of feelings for people. He's really just about like information and success.
Yeah. There's some
well, and in
he
the
cares
guest,
for the
too,
kids,
isn't
obviously.
the guest, he plays like a sociopath.
Yeah, and he's just very good at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you,
I was gonna say Black Mirror is another one. Did you guys do Bandersnatch?
I
haven't. Did you?
Yes.
Did you like it?
Fun?
I wouldn't do it again. I did it once and I was like, okay, this is enough. I did it once, like on my own, like doing it's like a choose your own adventure kind of thing.
Which they're getting sued for now.
Yep.
Oh, by the choose your own adventure people, which I didn't know you could like trademark.
Well, so the story is, and I don't want to take you off your talk here, but so basically the Choose Your Own Adventure is a concept created by one publishing company, and they're based in Vermont, actually, funnily enough. And Netflix approached them about doing a Choose Your Own Adventure movie, and then just went and did it without them, without telling them.
Oh.
And the phrase "Choose Your Own Adventure" is copyrighted, and they used that in the movie.
So
Someone
stupid.
actually says "Choose Your Own Adventure." So a lot of people are like being like, you can't sue them, whatever. But like they like on paper, objectively speaking, as legal documents, they have a pretty good case for like you took our idea.
Just call it an interactive movie.
It's really stupid of Netflix. The two dumb things from my perspective that Netflix did was meet those people in the first place.
Yeah, they should
because then they have on paper.
That lays down your all the evidence.
So was it good?
It was fun the first time around. Like I said, I wouldn't have done it again just because it's kind of.
Did you do it and do all the choices so you could see every ending?
So I did it the first time just like on my own, and then the second time I had like a cheat sheet that was like, if you choose this and this one, if you choose this.
It's like a video game.
Yeah, but like all the endings are bleak is what you eventually kind of find out.
The problem is if you need a cheat sheet, then it's probably not that good, right? Because if you really liked it,
then you would want to go do it again.
Yeah.
But along those lines, so I really liked Black Mirror Bandersnatch. I'm really excited for this next season of Black Mirror.
The first episode of Black Mirror
of the very first season
is the one with the pig.
Yes. Oh, he's gonna.
And I saw that episode. Have you seen this? So the premise is who gets kidnapped? It's like a royal or like
the princess.
A princess gets kidnapped, and the demand that comes
in England, so it's like,
and they have a very short amount of time,
right
before that, and the demand is the prime minister has to fuck a pig on live TV. And I mean, you guys know I have like a kind of a sick sense of humor, and I was like, wait, this is amazing. What is happening right now? And it has like the tone of a David Fincher movie, but it's about someone
Fucking
fucking
pig.
a
It's
pig.
so good.
So good.
It's so good.
And I watched the episode with the guy who's on the exercise bike.
With David.
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking
Kaluuya?
about.
Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot what it's called.
And then I watched the one with Bryce Dallas Howard,
Nosedive.
which I
That's
really
a good
liked.
one.
Yeah, but I haven't. Anthology series are hard for me because I'm like,
Same.
it's almost the same length as a movie, and I'd rather just watch a movie
Yeah,
because
it's kinda
I don't
how I-
know. But
It's tough for me as well.
but that's not a knock against Black Mirror. I really liked all the episodes I saw.
I will mention one show that didn't start on Netflix, but Netflix kind of saved it.
Is it
and had,
Gilmore Girls?
no, and then had like three seasons on Netflix. And a lot of people probably don't know about it, is Longmire, which is based
right,
on
you
a
told me
series.
about this,
It's
yeah.
based on a series of books, and it's basically about this sheriff in Montana and Wyoming. I think Montana. I can't remember where. Montana or Wyoming, somewhere up there, and it's about him like in this town, and he lives like next to an Indian reservation. The reason I really like it is like the characters are really good, and it's like a good crime procedural show without feeling like a generic cop show. You know?
Is it on IFC now?
No, it's done.
Oh,
It
okay.
finished. It started on A&E, and then they
Oh.
decided we don't want to do any scripted shows, and Netflix saved it because it had good, like it had always had good numbers and good ratings, but it wasn't the right demographic. It was an older skewed demographic, and I think for Netflix that's not as important as people watching a show. So if you kind of like a procedural type show that has individual episodes but a season long arc as well each season, that's a good show to watch.
Did you guys watch Bird Box?
I did
No.
not.
Oh, that's another good one. Or have you guys seen The Haunting of Hill House?
I still, that's on my
So,
list, but I still have
Someone
not
I
watched
work with she really likes horror and stuff like that, and we were talking about. I asked her if she had seen The Apostle. You know that movie with
With Denzel Washington?
no, who's in that? What's his name?
it. Dan Stevens.
Dan Stevens. It's directed by the guy who did The Raid. So he's a Welsh guy who did Indonesian martial arts movies, and then this is his first English language
yeah.
feature. But it's really strange. You might actually like it. It's about,
We watched it together. I liked it.
It's very strange, and it's about this guy who goes to this island off the coast of Scotland or
Somewhere, or
Ireland
to find his
because his
sister,
sister
right?
has disappeared. His dad has sent him there, and it's just like, it's kind of like, have you seen The Wicker Man?
I've heard about
It's
it.
like
With
weird
Nicolas
shit
Cage?
happening.
Well, that's the
that's the
remake.
remake.
Oh.
There's one from the 70s, but what were we talking about?
The Haunting of Hill House.
So I was asking this coworker of mine, "Oh, did you see Apostle?" And she's like, "Oh my god, shut up about that movie. Go watch Haunting of Hill House." She's like, "It's the best thing I've ever seen." Then the next day, she's like, "Oh my god, I finished Haunting of Hill House last night." She's like, "The last 10 minutes or whatever ruined the whole thing for me."
Interesting. Did you end up watching it?
No, but she told me what happened.
Oh, because like I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of
maybe it's the last episode, like the end of
the
it.
end of it. Yeah, there's a lot of what is it called? Like differing opinions on like the last episode. I think a lot of people don't like the way it ended because it's not a typical horror ending kind of thing in terms of like where everything is supposed to be like very nihilistic. Like
It
this
turns
is
into an orgy.
yes, it turns into Sensei,
hour
and then
long.
like
It's like, I'm going home watching it right now.
they're like surprise.
I'm adding it to my queue on my phone.
It's very more. It has a more like upbeat and happy, hopeful ending than I think people are used to for a horror film. But it's like one of those things too, where it's like people are always upset when things don't end the way that they think
Yeah.
it should end, and it's like, well, that doesn't make it a bad film. That just
Yeah.
means that like.
But also,
We've talked about that a lot, on
Yeah.
other podcasts of like, just because it's not what you want it to be doesn't mean it's bad.
Yeah.
and then if it does end the way you want it to be, you'll be like, oh, I saw that coming.
Yeah.
It's like you can't please
can't
some
win.
people.
What if it just doesn't end?
It just keeps going.
Or
What if you're in it?
it stops, but
Well,
there's
that's
no
like
ending.
that's
Sopranos.
basically Supernatural. It's like had its 300th episode, so it just keeps
Is that
going
the one with
and
the
going.
with the guy from Gilmore Girls?
Yeah,
in
the
it?
two
Yeah,
guys.
how many seasons is that?
14 or something.
They must be making so much money.
Oh my
They
god.
make good money.
So
I just watched the dude's house on YouTube for some reason, and it's pretty nice.
You just watched his house on YouTube?
did
There's
a
like a
tour.
live feed of his house.
No. He did a tour of his house in Austin. It was pretty nice.
So I mean, we should wrap things
We
up.
should
But there's
wrap,
just a
yeah.
couple names I want to throw out here that I think are big shows that we didn't touch upon, and maybe if either of you have seen them. Narcos. Did anyone see Narcos?
I watched
Still
a couple
haven't watched
episodes.
it.
I need to finish it. It's really good from what I saw.
Yeah.
So someone told me that someone gets raped with a machine gun in that show, and I was like, I don't need to watch that. But I have heard that it's very good from everyone who watches it.
Yeah.
And then
Did you guys watch what is that show with the two girls, Broad City?
I love that show.
So you know the guy who plays the gay Hispanic friend?
Yeah, Jaime.
Hi. So
Yeah.
I went to get my hairdresser, and she was watching Narcos, and I saw him.
What? He's in Narcos?
He's in Narcos, but he plays like a serious character.
I can't.
So I'm like watching it.
Ow.
I'm like, this isn't very. I think it's a comedy because I think he only does comedy.
Yeah.
I'm like, this show isn't very funny.
I was
Like,
just
what's
thinking
going
about
on?
them like smoking weed and listening
Yeah,
to Lil Wayne
it
the whole
was
time or
so-
something.
Just a warning when you watch it, like
Okay.
it's not a comedy.
One of the funniest things I've ever seen. So I watched the pilot of Broad City like a couple years ago when everyone was going nuts for it. And I was like, I don't get it. So I texted a friend of mine who loves that show. And I was like, I don't get it. He's like, watch the episode where she gets her teeth removed.
Oh.
And that's one of the funniest fucking things I have ever seen in my life.
Show us that.
When they're in the Whole Foods, you remember this scene? And she's hallucinating because she's on the painkillers.
Oh, yeah.
And that giant blue animal is there helping her shop. My Manuka, honey. I'm looking at a list of Netflix shows, seeing if there's anything that we probably should mention or people will get mad at us for not mentioning it. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? There's
What's on
so
the list?
many of
So
them.
many. I tried to
I
think
think
of
we-
list, but my list.
Oh, Troll Hunters. I actually really like Troll Hunters. So when my son was born, we would do this thing where my wife would stay up with him from, I think, like up until midnight. I would sleep during the day, and then I would be up with him from midnight until 6 in the morning. And he would sleep a lot of that time because he was an infant, obviously newborn. So I would just watch movies and TV. But these were the first movies that he was watching, so I wanted to be like, oh, they should be good, right? So when I was a kid, I loved monster movies, so I watched a lot of Guillermo del Toro. So I'm like, okay, this will be a good first movie for him. And Troll Hunters is a Guillermo del Toro produced Netflix show. That is a cartoon about a kid who becomes the first ever human troll hunter, who has to hunt bad trolls. So he's like this kid in like this small town that looks like it's in the valley or is like Pasadena or something, who has to start, like, he goes into this magical world. It's like a very Guillermo del Toro-esque thing, but it's a really good show.
Is it a kid show? Or
Yeah, it's
is it
a kid show. It's
interesting.
animated. But I got caught up in it, and I really liked it. I don't know. There's like so many of them. I never even heard of a lot of these.
I think we hit the big ones, right?
Yeah, so
If we missed something, leave a comment,
Ted
and
Bundy tapes.
we can do
maybe
a whole-
eventually we'll do another one
I
where we
think we
talk
should
about
do a
movies.
whole podcast on Sense8.
I
And
mean,
I'll
you'd be the
I'll
only one
make
talking.
everyone watch it.
You'll be
and
the only one
then
talking.
You would like it. There's orgies. There's violence.
That's right up your alley.
That's
Those
just
are your
like,
hobbies.
I mean,
It's just like what Mike does every day. It's like I don't need to watch my own life.
I can just like think about it or close my eyes. I need something to break the monotony
Well, thanks for
of the
listening.
orgy and violence.
If you're watching on YouTube, if you've gotten this far and you have a favorite Netflix show, or if you think we're wrong, leave some comments. Tell us the deal. Otherwise, thanks for Tasha for maybe Dating Now.
Yes.
Tasha's series will be the next big Netflix series.
show that we
Yeah.
talk
And
about.
that'll
We'll
be the
talk
next
about
thing
it.
we can talk
There'll be
While
about.
she's like
plenty of
rich and
orgies.
famous, and we're sitting here in this basement doing a podcast.
Basement, bro.
Well,
We're in the third
whatever.
floor. Okay.
You know what I mean.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.